I don't feel that my math actually helped me in answering the question.
The main thing for you to work on is doing that zooming in, zooming out, and then just taking a pause after you add on new keywords and concepts to just give yourself more frequent opportunities to restructure your map before it gets to the point where it's already so committed that it's overwhelming.
That makes more
Awesome.
sense.
Every couple of months, I find some members in our I Can Study program who are active and supportive in our community, and I offer them some 30-minute free coaching sessions. Some of you do seem to really like my coaching style content, so I've decided to record some of these and post them on YouTube. Before we jump in, I'd appreciate if you give this video a like, and if you're interested in joining the full program yourself, then you can check out icanstudy.com. There's a link in the description.
I have ended high school. Currently, I'm in army, so it's a compulsory service in Singapore. So I'll be in army in 2 years, and yeah, so I'm currently waiting to go university. The problem that I was having is, first, my retention wasn't that good for the Mindmap. Then second, is like I just feel even if I refer to the Mindmap, I don't feel that Mindmap actually helped me in any way in answering the question, because the subject I'm doing is econs, and is a subject that is really interlinked between like the concepts. So
Can you show me an example of your mind map? So which one do you want me to
you
look
can
at?
look at the macro attempt 6 first.
6, okay.
Yes, look at this first. Okay, this one was really not inter. It is kind of inter. This one is
It's better.
Yeah, it's better.
So this map here, and then like this map here as well as this one here. Are you saying that this didn't really help you, and your retention on these was still low?
Okay, attempt 7 was relatively better because I use important base chunking.
I would expect this one your retention will be low, and I expect that this one will help you very much.
Yes, it didn't help me at all. I just when I see the mind map, it makes sense, but I just don't feel how it can help me in terms of.
So this one wouldn't help you that much because it's not just more things that need to be improved with this. But I would expect that this one, and to some extent this one, but especially this one and especially this one, I expect that these two would be more helpful and that your retention for these should be fairly high. Like this one especially, I expect that your retention should be reasonably high.
Yes, this one is the highest.
Yeah.
For some reason, okay. For some reason, the demand.
Is this a later attempt? Or is this an earlier one?
This one is the later attempt.
This is later, right?
Yes, the previous one
in order of quality, it's like this one.
This one is
it's this one.
Earlier attempt.
Yeah, and then after is like maybe
this one is also
this one, and then this one is the next best, and then this one is the best.
Yeah, but the latest attempt is actually macro attempt 7. Yes.
Yeah, this one's not bad though. Yeah.
This one, the thing is,
but I think this one is not as good still.
Yes, because I was using like over 100 keywords. I think that was the problem. Then I was having some problem with the chunking. Yeah.
So if you were to do it like, okay, when you're doing this attempt, yes, there are problems, but your technique has gotten better now. So do you still have those same problems? Because you mentioned that the retention on the mind map and also the mind map wasn't helping in general. Is that still the case, even with your better technique?
The retention got better, and like I can link to questions more. Yes. Then, but it surfaced to me another question. Another question is because I realized this was an incomplete map.
Yeah.
This one is the only completed one is the other one that you expect is to be the best.
Yeah.
Yes, this one is the only completed.
Yeah. So the main things that I see. Yeah. Okay. You go.
The reason why that attempt 7 was incomplete was I really cannot add in any more keywords. Any more keywords that I add in, I really feel it's like
it's overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. Yeah. And I feel this backbone is not the best. Yeah, I still feel this backbone I can change, but the backbone itself I have changed around 5 times already.
Yeah, that's quite normal, especially if you're working with lots of keywords. Okay, so there's a few things that I think is going on. One of the things that I notice is that it's relatively detail stripped. So what that means is that it's using the biggest keywords, but like for example, this one especially, it doesn't have really any of the like more technical detail, and so there's probably like a whole level of information that you would need to know for an exam that isn't on this mind map that could be on this mind map. But the thing that's stopping you from adding that on is probably these two things here, which is the fact that your map is segmental, slightly segmental, and there's also what we call anti-spider webbing. So spider webbing happens when you have a flow, and then you realize that there are more relationships than you thought of initially, and then so you try to add those relationships on after you have already built the overall structure, and then it starts looking like this, and so that's now spider webbing. So and obviously it's quite messy. It's hard to follow. Your retention on this is not going to be very good. But anti-spider webbing is when you know that this will happen, and so you just don't. Like you know that as soon as you try to do it, it's going to become messy, and so you just don't even try. That's anti-spider webbing. Both of them are not ideal. So the way that we solve this by addressing the segmental part of it. When we're mapping segmentally, what this means is that we're focusing in on one area and we're developing it much more fully compared to the rest. So that might end up looking like this. It might end up looking, yeah, there'll be like quite a lot going on in just one area. So that this part has been really fleshed out in a lot of depth. However, the other parts have been kind of neglected. Like all of this area here has been neglected. So I can see this when I look at this one. This top right corner is much more fully developed than basically everything else in here.
Yes.
And so when you try to add more keywords, you might be wanting to add something over here, right? By domestic income. You might want to add something here and then something here and then maybe something here and something here. But you know that when you add something here, that's now going to relate to stuff that's over on this side. And then that's going to cause those arrows to cross and it's going to become very messy. The problem is not adding more keywords and seeing that the relationships are there. It's good that you can see the relationships. The problem was that you fleshed out this whole thing to this level before adding any of that here, right? So the difference is like this. If you do what you've done, and this is very common, by the way, so this is all very normal. It's not like you did something wrong. This is like a normal mistake that everyone has to make. When you do it this way, this is what happens with the mind map. You end up going through and saying, okay, well, here's kind of like a basic backbone that I'm creating. This is the overall structure of the topic. Great. And then we start adding on the extra level of depth. And so we say, okay, well, that's kind of split up like this, and then that's split up like this, and then that, and then this is split up like into these three things here, and then this one is split up again, and then these two relate to each other, and these relate to each other like that. And so you look at that and you think, okay, good. I'm happy with that. That looks good. And then if we move on to this bottom one, if we move on to this one now, and then we start fleshing that out, we start saying, okay, well, this one has got this, and then this one has got this, and then these two are related. And then if I flesh this one, it's like, okay, well, there's more here, but then this one is related to this one, and then this one, but then this one is actually related to like this one, and then there's this one, but then this one is actually related to like this one over here. So straight away, we're run into like an issue. It's now already too messy. And that's just from adding one extra concept. Right? As we add more and more and more, it just becomes even more crazy. And the reason is because there's just too much density. There's just too much density in this area compared to the rest of it. So here's what you should do instead. Because the first thing that you did was you worked out that general basic backbone. You were like this, and then that is like this. That's fine. That looks good. You're happy with that. This is fine. This is all good. The next step is like, okay, so what are the main concepts that come off of this? You then add those on across all of them. You then ask, are any of these related to each other? And you might think, okay, well, these are actually related to each other, and then this is related to this one. So straight away, we know that even without fleshing it out further, we might need to change this up. So we would stop here, and we would then take this opportunity to redo it. So we would go back, we might rearrange this so that instead, it now looks like this. Right, so we just created a little bit more space for ourselves. And you can see that already the structure is starting to change. And then now we can add on, some of the other ones, and you say, okay, how are they related? And that might be fine. And then you add on the next level. So we say, okay, well, what is the very next level? So there's a couple things here. There's a couple things here. This one's just got a few more details. And every single extra thing that we add on, we always think, how is that related to the rest? How does that fit into the big picture? So as soon as you add on this one, you think, okay, how does that relate to the big picture? Okay, that's fine. This is as good as it gets. There's no other relationships. We add another one on here. How is that related? Okay, now we see that this one is actually related to this one here. Okay, we can draw that arrow. That's fine. We add another one. How is that related to the big picture? Okay, we now see that this one is potentially related to this one. That becomes a problem. So we take a pause and then we rearrange. So maybe what I can do is I can move this one somewhere around maybe I can move this one like all the way over here so that this arrow ends up being a little bit cleaner like this. Yes, we're still going to have a crossing, but it's still going to be much cleaner than it is now. So in order for me to do that, I need to reposition this thing. So let's do that. So I might add this one on something that looks like this instead. And that allows me to draw a connection like that, which is a little cleaner. So every new element that's added, we're constantly rearranging. If we delay the rearranging process for too long, it starts to get overwhelming. Because now there's like so many things to move around. It's almost like, you can almost think of it like if you've got a new house and you're moving all your furniture into it, it makes more sense to rearrange the room and think about everything for each new piece of furniture you put in. Because if you already put all the furniture inside the house and then you think you want to rearrange it, it's more complicated because now you have to like move all these other things out of the way, and that takes much more time and much more effort, and it's just more overwhelming. So instead, It makes much more sense to reevaluate constantly as you go to avoid it. So if we were to look at the map that you initially sent through, like this one, what it looks like is probably you created your overall backbone first with this one, this flow here. And this backbone flow is like maybe it can be better, but it's not terrible. It's not bad. And then after that, maybe what you did is you added these ones, these kind of blue lines in first. And then afterwards you added in all these black ones here. But the thing is, when you added these black ones, you should also be thinking, how does that relate to all these other blue ones? Whereas I think what happened is that when you started adding these ones in the top right, you only thought about how it creates a network in this space. You didn't think about how it might relate to the other things that are on here. So if you were to like add, for example, like technological advancement, which is right here in the top right, and then you think, well, how is that going to be potentially related to domestic income or foreign income? That means that you're giving yourself an earlier opportunity to rearrange the flow.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because what actually happened to me during the mind mapping is, okay, let's use the technological advancement concept also. It's like I'm basically doing anti-spider webbing in a way that I don't think about the relationship between like technological advancement to income. How I think of it is, since it branches out technological advancement, so I was thinking maybe that means that the technological advancement is related to income in terms of production, which actually it is like logically speaking, it is that way. That's why I didn't think.
Yeah, the idea here is that it logically makes sense. Technological advancement is related to income because it affects production. Yes, like that does make sense. That's perfectly valid. And I'm not saying don't have it that way, but it's about exploring more relationships and then coming to a judgment about how you want to express them. It's not just like find one that makes sense. It's fine. Like there's usually multiple ways that things can be connected to other things. There are multiple ways that things can make sense. And we want to understand more than one of those ways so that we are aware of the possible network that it can form. Because like this technological advancement will definitely be related to some of these other concepts as well. Now, whether it's important enough that you want to actually put it in your map, that's another story, but you do at least want to think about it. And I often talk about this idea of like zooming in and out very often. Zooming in and out very often. By the way, I just want to mention, for your stage, your current skill level is fine. Like all the problems that you're facing, This is completely normal and expected at your level, and you will probably just naturally learn to overcome this as well as you progress through the program, because now we're getting into some nuances. The missing part is how quickly you're scrolling in and out. Like when you're here, when you're looking at things at a really, really zoomed in level, it's hard to see the big picture. So when you are zoomed in, you put something down, okay, you've mapped out this thing, you've mapped out this thing. Once you've mapped it out, stop, zoom out, look at the whole picture. How does what you just put in fit with the whole picture? Rearrange things if you need to. Okay, now you can zoom back in. Zoom back in, figure out some more of the relationships. Okay, now zoom out. So you have to be constantly zooming in and out to see how what you're creating fits with the big picture, right? Otherwise, what you end up with is you can have very dense networks of connections in a very localized area. But then when you actually look at the big picture, it's actually very confusing and hard to follow, because even though there are like these pockets of really well connected things, overall, it's not well connected together. So it's still quite a lot for your brain to try to hold into and make sense of. The reason this one is better is because at a big picture level, the connections are clearer. But I suspect that the reason this one is better is because the topic was just naturally easier. It was just naturally more organized and more well categorized. And there's probably just less connections between some of these peripheral things that you need to think about. And your backbone just is a lot more intuitive to begin with. That's probably the reason why this one ends up being clearer, whereas this one just ends up being a little bit more complicated because there's just more nuanced relationships. And again, that's normal, and it just means that your skill level needs to just catch up to that. The main thing for you to work on is doing that zooming in, zooming out, and then just taking a pause after you add on new keywords and concepts to think, how does that relate to the big picture? So just give yourself more frequent opportunities to restructure your map before it gets to the point where it's already so committed that it's overwhelming.
I think this may be a small reason, but the thing is, when I see, like, when you stream on live clinic, or when other coaches like draw my map, live demonstration, I realize when you draw my map, you will be actually quite a zoom out. Yeah, you will be quite zoom out. But for me, like just now you were showing like the concepts, the technological advancement. That's actually the whole thing I can see on my screen when I was doing like my mapping. So is it that I just have to deal with this for this app because if
No,
I
this is
want
part of the skill.
or
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, is that actually the act of literally just deliberately taking time to pause, zoom out, reconnect, zoom back in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, right? And that's not literally like just pinching, but it's mentally as well. Thinking detailed, thinking big, thinking detailed, thinking big. That is part of the skill. When you've got lots of keywords, lots of concepts to try to work with, you need to do this more frequently. If it's a very small topic, there's not much consequence. You can stay zoomed in for a very long time, very detailed. And when you zoom out, there's only like 2 other concepts you need to connect it to. It's not too hard. But if you've got like 40 different things to connect it to, then by the time you've already mapped out one part in detail and you look at the big picture, you might realize, okay, well, you've just missed like all these other connections. And now you'd have to undo what you've just done to try to make it fit, which is just, like an ineffective use of time.
yeah, I can completely understand it. Yeah, I will go and try it out more because actually, if you see my keywords, right, the keywords that I choose, some of them are actually relationships. Like the consequences, the advantages, I will just bring in all the keywords. I think that is actually just my problem of going too much into details.
I think you can. I don't think you need to collect quite as many keywords in the first part. I think working with like 100 keywords when you're still just learning the skill is a bit too much. I would recommend maybe dropping it down to like 30 or even 50 is manageable. You won't miss anything because you're gonna come back to it anyway. You're not skipping the keyword. You're just delaying it. You're just partitioning your time differently. You're saying these are the keywords I'm going to work on now, and then these are the keywords I'm going to work on later. Like what you can do is you can create a list of keywords, and then you can create a sub list of keywords. You can look at your big list and then pull out the ones that you think are more important and make a separate list. Right? Skipping information does not mean you're actually skipping it. It just means that you're being more deliberate about when you learn it. The thing that should create more uncertainty is if you feel like you're covering it just because you've got it down when actually you haven't learned it properly. Like that's the real skip, right? Because now you think you've studied it, but it's not in your memory anyway. Like if this is what we see with people when they just like read and reread and rewrite their notes all the time. Like, yes, they're reading and writing everything. They're not missing anything, but actually everything is being missed because none of it's staying in the memory. So we just got to shift our focus. Yeah.
That makes more
Awesome.
sense.
Cool. All right. Good luck. We'll keep in touch. Any final remarks or questions?
It's a very full session. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thanks. See you later.
Thank you, Justin. Bye
Bye.
bye.